Hey guys, this is Jonathan from Fitness for Freedom. Today we are going to show you how to use your glutes through an effective hip extension. All right, in today's video, we're going to talk about the hip extension to strength train your glutes specifically. So the hip extension is this sort of a movement here where you're pulling through your hips and straightening them out. So that can be done through a squat or a split squat or a lunge. So the subtle difference between a thigh extension and a hip extension is that a thigh extension is when you're just doing this movement past parallel with your body, and the hip extension is where you're coming up only to parallel or before parallel in the case of the lunge or split squat with your body. Okay, so we're going to talk about the bilateral stance movement first. So that would be a squat or a deadlift, where you're taking this position here with your feet hip to shoulder width apart, okay? And you're going to do this movement, whether it's through a squat or through a deadlift. They're slightly different, but they're close enough for the sake of this, okay? What gets your glutes more involved is to, one, rip the floor apart. So a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just go down and they'll come straight up. But if you push off the inside of your heels and the inside of your feet as you come up, as if you're trying to rip the floor apart, then you're working on the stabilization and rotational component of your hip, okay? Or of your glutes. And that's going to get your glutes much more involved as you do the movement, okay? So that's sort of step one to get your glutes involved. Step two is the more forward your torso comes, the more you're going to use your glutes. So during a deadlift, you're going to use your glutes a lot more because your torso is much more forward as you come up. And if you use a back squat, then again, your torso is going to come more forward, so we're going to use your glutes a lot more. Whereas if you're doing a front squat or resting the weight on the front of your chest, your body has to stay a little bit more upright, which means you're going to use your glutes. Although you're still using them, it's less than those other variations. So that's something to consider if you're trying to get your glutes involved in the exercise. Now, the next sort of hip extension exercise would be a split squat, and we'll go into a lunge directly after because they're very similar exercises. So for a split squat, you're letting your knee drop straight down like this, staying nice and upright and pushing off that heel of your front foot, okay? So that's going to get your glute a lot more involved. A common mistake that a lot of people make, specifically when it comes to activating your glute, is they'll have their front foot sort of turned inward, okay, as they're doing this motion. And that's going to inhibit your glute because you're not externally rotating it. So keep your toe forward. If you're having trouble with your balance, widen your stance just a little bit, okay, and that'll make it a bit easier for you to do the exercise and stay nice and stable, okay? And lastly, or the next way to improve your glute activation would be, instead of doing a split squat, would be to do a lunge forward. But you want to make sure you've mastered the split squat first, because a lunge is a much harder exercise for you to do. And again, always pushing off your heel. Now, as you're doing those sort of hip extension exercises, if you're not feeling it in your glutes, then you will want to try an easier exercise like a glute bridge with a band around your knees. And we'll just show you that quickly in a minute. All right, if you have trouble feeling your glutes doing deadlifts, squats, and lunges, then I recommend you go to the glute bridge, okay? And using the band again with the glute bridge. So putting it around your thighs, just above your knees, okay? Nice and flat so it doesn't rip your hair or your skin. And then going down into position, toes in the air, not letting your knees come together and pushing your hips up. So again, we're using the stabilization and the rotational aspect of your glute to help get them a little bit more involved. The same way as we would if we're trying to rip the floor apart as we're doing the squats or deadlifts. Okay, so that's just sort of an easier exercise to help get your glutes a little bit more activated. On days when you're doing split squats, deadlifts, or regular squats, then I recommend doing this exercise as part of your warm-up to get your glutes really involved and really firing before you start lifting heavier and big weights. If you found this video useful, please subscribe to our YouTube channel because we deliver content just like it every week. If you have any comments or questions about the hip extension, squats or lunges or glute bridges, please leave them in the box below. Take care, and we'll talk to you next time.